So welcome everyone. It's great to be here with you guys. Over 100 people have joined us. I want to thank. Oops, some technical difficulties, but we'll get there. I want to thank the Cyberbahn for joining us in our Safe Day. It's absolutely super to get these Safe Days going. Michael Center, who's our lead for these type of industry events, has been really chomping at the bit to get them going. I'm glad our first country one is here in India. And I want to thank not only Cyberbahn, but our sponsors too. We appreciate you for supporting us in this first event. And thank you all the subscribers who paid. It's just absolutely fabulous that you're able to join us. So with Dean on the call and so much safe expertise available, I'm not going to talk much about safe specifically because we've got too much expertise. I'm going to really focus on the growth of safe, how India plays in that, the growth of frameworks in general, and then look at the opportunity ahead of us and the part that training and the reskilling that I know many of you are involved in, the part that plays going ahead. But as I was preparing for this, I could not forget, I've been to India many times, but one of my favorite times was being in Bangalore at the cricket ground there. And it was the World Cup, which India went on to win, but Ireland, who you played in sort of the early part of the championship, they had just beaten England. So when they came on the field to play India, there was huge excitement, and I was lucky enough to be there. And for about the first 3 overs, it looked possible. And then it was downhill from there, and you guys just took it away. But I always have really good memories of being in India and working with the team there. So, global adoption trends. How is SAFE and other frameworks starting to evolve? Well, Pranjal put up some of the data. This is a slide we use often just to show how we are doing in the world. We've trained over 600,000 people in 110 countries. It's actually nearly approaching 700,000. It's a significant adoption across the world. 20,000 different enterprises have had people trained. Now, some of those have had 2 or 3 people trained, and some have had 10, 12, 15,000 people trained in SAFE. So there's a lot of variation in that and a lot of depth in some and just starting the journey in others. And we've done that primarily through our partnerships, which are really important to us. And we have partners now in over 50 countries, and that too is approaching nearly 400 now. And we've also had, there's good data in terms of where the leadership is, and I'll just share some of that data with you. First of all, I'd like to just mention and draw on something Dean and Pranjal were talking to, which is the adoption of agile practices. Obviously, many of us now experience, Dean was talking about his insurance and being in a non-digital context and how difficult it was. And it's still surprising how many companies have not transitioned to a digital context or have not transferred many of their applications to a digital context. But it's also surprising how many have not yet adopted agile practices. And we certainly hear it on a daily basis that those that have adopted agile practice are really much more able to deal with the current context. So you can see here, this is a Gartner slide, and I've got a few Gartner slides that I'll share, but approximately 46% now are using agile practices to do their application development. So again, that talks to opportunity as we practice SAFE to help a lot more companies ahead of us. This is Gartner survey from January about the adoption of SAFE, but also adoption of other frameworks. And I'd just like to share with you here, really, when we are talking to customers, one of the most competitive contexts that we're in is generally the customer's own custom developed Scrum of Scrums implementation. And the second one is Spotify. We often see some of the big consulting firms, the global consulting firms, have said, well, you should do Spotify. And I think that's code for you should do something innovative, you should do something different. But it's not very well adopted. And obviously, many of you will see it's not very well applied. And certainly Spotify do not encourage people to take their original approach. They've stepped away from it as well and are doing slightly different from that first implementation. And of course, we're seeing disciplined agile now as part of PMI. I know PMI is very big in India, and that will get a lot of attention. And as a way of working, or a suggested way of choosing a way of working, we think there is a lot of opportunity with SAFE, even if those companies choose to, some companies choose to use disciplined agile to identify the best way of working for us. We still think they'll make their way to SAFE. And so market leader, and it's something we take very seriously. We have responsibilities as a market leader, and a lot of the work that Dean and his team do is about research and making sure that we are harvesting and bringing together proven practice. And he gets a lot of input in different ways, but it's a very important part of how we evolve SAFE and keep SAFE as a market leader, but also meeting the needs, the current needs, you know, as we transition to virtual in this current context. But we're always trying to keep SAFE in the sharp end so that it solves today's problems. This is another survey from Digital AI, and it's similar to the last one. Highlights that Scrum of Scrums and SAFE as the market leader. Now, in terms of trained in SAFE, India is really one of our great adopters of SAFE in terms of getting training. And you can see, I put in here just some of the other countries there. You can see China was in a level of decline. There was recessionary context as we came into COVID. One of the most surprising things for me as a business leader who's worked in IT and training and IP distribution most of my career is to see France so prevalent in adopting SAFE, because normally they're very anxious if you're delivering in English content, and they've been a real heavy adopter, led by some of the government departments which were early adopters. And you could see there was a recessionary period as we came out of Q3, Q4, and obviously as we hit this crisis, this black swan event, there's been, you know, decline. But there is evidence, we're seeing that. Dean showed some detailed figures there of how we're coming back, and we no doubt India, as it moves forward to a recovery, will come back strong. India also shows very well in terms of the certification, and is second only to the US in terms of certifications, and then you know, distant to that is UK, France, Australia, and Australia had some really good SDCTs who helped bring that, give them an early start, and we're seeing the same in Europe now, in France and the UK. But thanks for your support. I know many of you are certified in SAFE, and we hope you'll stay with us for the long haul. We certainly intend to be here for the long haul. So Let's talk about challenging times. Obviously, we've had a lot of challenges professionally and personally, but you know, it's easy to say, but it is absolutely true that we'll look at this crisis as a risk and others as an opportunity. I always say, off here in the side is probably a guy selling rafts and canoes and small boats so that people can get over, and he's probably really doing well. But obviously it's a challenge. It's not a trivial challenge that we're facing around the globe and individually and personally. So it has these two parallel impacts too. There's obviously the pandemic, but it's also, which we're starting to see now, the financial crisis, as our enterprise customers look at ways of staying in business and look at the digital opportunities. And that's where I'd like to go next, is really talk about the digital opportunities. And Dean and I are old enough to have seen all of these black swan events, whether it was the recession after the Gulf War and what that brought to the price of oil. I happened to be working at some microsystems during the dot-com bubble, and that was a terrible context for us because we've been going up, really riding that wave very strongly. And the dot-com bubble, necessary, but it was a real challenge for us as a business. And then the more recent banking collapse recession has hit us, and now here we are with COVID. But there's an interesting context that happens in these black swan events, is that immediately following, there is a resurgence, an introduction of new technology. We saw it with the desktop computers way back, and mobile phones becoming cheap enough and easy access to them in that first recession there, and then the rise of e-commerce after the banking collapse, and then cloud technologies, and which is really the rise of e-commerce after the dot-com bubble, and then the cloud technologies after the banking collapse there. So these new technologies really came out of the sort of challenges and the attempt then to sort of move your way forward. And there is no doubt we'll see that with the COVID crisis. And digital's view is one we probably share, that there'll be a greater emphasis on virtual workforces and enabling virtual workforces. We've seen that. Virtual business models, changing buying habits, here in the US, for example, buying cars without even driving them. You get a video experience, and then they deliver it to your door, for example, is one where they're not now going to the car lot to buy cars. And same with grocery shopping, and these type of things are all moving and changing our buying habits. And also a rise in automation. Low touch context, and automating as far as possible. So let's have a look at this opportunity. There's the Gartner view. CompTIA just did a recent study that I saw as I was looking for information around this, and you could see Internet of Things, virtual reality, biometrics, robotics. These type of things are ahead of us, and NASCON in their Tech Decade top 20 or top 10 ideas and suggestions where technology will go. Obviously, cloud computing, Internet of Things, big data and analytics. That's just the way of the world these days. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics. We're starting to see security guards now that are robots, and having them do sort of perimeter security searches now using robots. Blockchain obviously has been around, and immersive media. So what this leads me to and here's an example from KPMG, is that there's complexity in the technologies. It's not going to get simpler. You know, in this case, this was bringing together sensors, cloud computing, robotics, drones, facial recognition, thermal imaging for these type of activities. You know, in this case, it was, you know, for police patrols, personal hygiene, etc. And with this complexity and differing technologies brings the need for scaling agility practices. And I think SAFE and its approach to bringing, you know, making complex development, making it manageable and enabling people to work in teams is totally appropriate now, because the complexity is not going to, it's not going to get simpler. There is more complexity as we bring all these technologies together. So one of the key things that I've noticed, and you've probably noticed, and Dean referenced with his insurance story, is the lack of digital implementations across all industries. And this survey was actually done in, I think it was December 2019. It talked to, well, where are you in terms of your digital implementations? And this top group here, 30–40%, were at scale and were starting to refine their approach to their digital practices and their digital applications. And this group down here, you can see some had no digital initiative, thankfully a small few. 16% were at the ambition. We know we need to do it. We have the ambition to do it. The next 16% were in that design mode, and 26% were in the process of delivering their digital. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of speed up, and we notice the difference as we interact with different businesses, those that were ready and able to scale, and those that really were in the midst of implementation. But it all speaks to the opportunity that's ahead of us as agile practitioners, as safe agile leaders. We have a role to play here. And it's particularly around the areas, as NASSCOM recently picked out, which is around upskilling and reskilling, and a focus on enabling not only the digital technology, but also practices that support bringing products to market that much faster. And so the comment here, which they borrowed from the World Economic Forum, was around, when it comes to translating technology innovations into real business results, technology is relatively easy to come by. It's the talent that is the limiting factor. And that's talent in terms of knowledge of the technology and the ability to apply it across multiple industries and government scenarios, and also the working practices, the way of working. And I think that's what you as a team here in India, as a community in India, that's what we can bring. We have a way of working that will enable faster adoption of digital technology, bringing together complex systems to enable the digital economy. So that's my last slide. I want to thank you for your attention, and I think you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you to support India as it thrives in the digital economy and the adoption of new technology that's ahead of us. So thank you very much for joining, and stay safe.